Hey y'all, so today I'm gonna try and explain all the photography basics in like 10 minutes or less. And this is a video that's perfect if you're always in a super big rush or just need to learn on the go. Okay, so let's start the timer, the stopwatch. Okay, and let's start. So the basic stuff for photography, there's like 3 basics that you need to know. First, we have ISO, we have aperture, and we have shutter speed. All those are really 3 different, they're more like cousins, but their cousins will always work together. Like if there's not one, then these 2 can't work, okay? So I have my camera right here, and I'm gonna show you some of the basics. So first, let's talk about photography gear. This camera I highly recommend. I'm gonna post some pictures right here with some of the pictures that I took. I've used this lens and I've used a 50mm 1.4 lens, and I highly recommend them. This camera goes for about $400 now. There are 2 newer ones that came out after this, the T7i and the T8i. This is a T6i. Don't go for them. Personally, I find that they're super similar with just a higher price point. Like they're almost near $1,000, and you can get high-grade professional camera for around $1,000 to $2,000. Okay. I also have this lens right here, the 2.8 to 135. This lens is super awesome, really high quality, and this gold line is just one step under the L series. Okay. So first we have ISO. ISO describes how sensitive the camera is to light. So you know when you wake up after like sleeping forever, and someone opens the blinds and you're like, oh my gosh, like it's completely bright. Your eyes hurt just because how bright it is. That's kind of like your eyes being not so sensitive to light, okay? It's like at night when you wake up or you go downstairs and it's really dark and you have to adjust your eyes so that we can see all the darkness, That's ISO. So when the camera, okay, let's turn it on. When the camera has a really high ISO, that means it's really sensitive to light, okay? And when it's really sensitive to light, that means you can take pictures when it's dark, when it's night, when the sun is setting, and it's like really dark. We call it blue hour, okay? And the ISO sensitive is really low, okay? So for example, like when it's bright, like right now it's really bright, so the ISO doesn't have to be that bright. It doesn't have to be that high. So ISO 50 to 100 is perfect for sunny days. ISO 200 to 400 is for cloudy days or indoors. And 800 up is for depending on how dark or how lack of light there is in the room. Okay? So that's ISO. And you'll see it right here. I'll just post a picture of what it looks like in the camera. And ISO is how we change and how we determine the sensitivity of the camera to the light. Okay? Next, we have shutter speed. Shutter speed is how fast the camera blinks. Okay? So think about it like this. You are on a road trip, and when you're going really fast, think of it kind of like shutter speed. The slower you're going, the easier you can capture things like, oh, I see a cow, it has 7 legs, 2 arms, whatever. But when the car's going super fast, like 60 miles, 70, 80 miles per hour, you just whoop, and you're not really seeing a lot of stuff. That's kind of like shutter speed. Shutter speed is similar. It just determines how much light, okay, the camera is willing to accept. How much light is like, okay. Because we know that light is super duper fast, okay? So if the camera has a really fast shutter speed, it's gonna blink really fast, so that way barely any light is gonna come in. And when that happens, we use it for days that are really bright, or if we have someone running and we're gonna capture them running, right? If we're going to a soccer game, we're taking pictures of kids. Kids are always running and always moving, and we want a shutter speed, okay, that will capture the movement, okay, or just capture the wind swaying in the wind, like without it getting the leaves swaying in the wind, without it getting super motion blur or anything. That's perfect for that. So that's what we call shutter speed. Next, we have ISO, we have shutter speed, and then we have aperture. Aperture is all about the lens, okay? It's kind of similar to shutter speed's explanation of how much light we're allowing, into the lens, but this is specifically more the lens, okay? So have y'all seen those pictures where the black background is really blurry? The light, like Christmas lights, are really nice and round and big, and the subject is in focus. Everything looks really nice. That is what determines that. Aperture is what determines that, right? So for example, if we're taking pictures of let's say we're taking a picture of me and I'm standing like this, right? And we want the background to be really, really blurry, but me in focus. We're gonna go to a really low aperture, okay? And when I say low, for example, like 1.2, 1.4, 1.8, all the way up to like 3.5, I consider that a low aperture. Okay, the number is low, but that means the lens is open up really, 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 really wide, just like that. Okay? And a really awesome way to think about it is like cats. You know when you see a cat and it's really dark and their eyes open up all the way, okay, like it's really dark circles, or if it's really sunny and their eyes are just little slits, right? That happens a lot with cats. Okay, so that's exactly how aperture works. It's just how wide, okay, how wide or how narrow the lens is, deciding on how much light to allow into the camera. Okay, so for example, if you want to take a picture of a landscape, so we want the trees, the mountains, the rivers, everything to be in focus, we're going to a really narrow shutter speed, okay? And a narrow shutter speed would be like something like f22, f13, from like around f10 all the way to like f32. I'm not sure what the smallest of the camera can go, but I know that f32 is pretty narrow. It's almost like a pinhole, okay? Another thing to think about is we can use our hands. So if you open your hands really wide, just like this, okay? You can see a lot, but there's only one thing your eyes can focus on without it having to move around. So do like this and try not to look around. Look at one single thing and you'll notice that that thing is in focus and the other things around you might be slightly blurry. Compared to if I do like this, okay, whatever I'm looking at, everything will be in focus. And that's a really awesome way to think about it with aperture, okay? So how much time do we have left? 6 minutes. So I explained all that in 6 minutes. Let's do some examples, okay? So for example, if we want to get a really nice picture with a blurry background, we'll go to a really wide aperture. But you're like, Salma, isn't wide apertures for when it's really dark? Well, not really. That's where the other triplets come into play, ISO and shutter speed. If you want to get a really nice picture with a blurry background and the subject in focus, okay, we would switch from, for example, 1.8, 1.4, 2.8. Those are considered really wide apertures. So the camera's going to be all the way open and they'll give us a really nice blurry background. And for that, to not have the picture be over bright or blown out, okay, we'd go to a really low ISO. So we'll go to like 100. 100 is a really low ISO. And for shutter speed, it would go really high. So for example, 3,000th of a second. And with that, on a sunny day, we can get a picture where the subject is in focus and the background is really nice and blurry, okay? So that's all we have for today. How much time do we have? 7 minutes? Okay, perfect. So that's all we need to know right now for the basics of photography. Your homework is, as always, is to take as many pictures as possible. This one specifically, I want you to take a picture with a high ISO and a low ISO. So for example, pick a time of day, anytime, okay? Low ISO, high ISO. I'm gonna take fast shutter speed and a slow shutter speed. So for example, go to 1/3 of a second, all the way to like 2,000th of a second. And lastly, for aperture, I want you to go as low as your camera will let you. A lot of cameras, the lowest they can go, unfortunately, is 3.5, especially if it's a kit lens, okay? But other cameras, this one also is 3.5, just because zoom lens is anyone that goes like this. Prime lens is ones that don't move at all. Like they're a set focal point, okay? It's kind of, our eyes are actually prime lenses, okay? Our eyes can only see a certain amount of distance, okay? Even if we don't have glasses on or anything, if we see something close, we see something far, our eyes can't zoom in to make that far thing look closer, right? So our eyes are very much indeed prime lenses. So a lot of people say that 15 millimeter is very similar to what our eyes see. I personally say it's more like 35 millimeters if you know your lenses, a 35 millimeter prime, just because it gets a lot more, our eyes get a lot more in focus. Okay, and that's it for today. I'll see you guys in the next video, and I hope you enjoyed this one.